Can you see me? Yeah, maybe just ask him.
Okay, working?
Yeah. Okay, it's right there.
I won't be able to see you there. Guys, would you be okay if she just puts this right here?
That's fine. You'll just be in the live stream. We're doing a live stream of the service.
Oh, right here. No, behind, you know what, then I guess she just won't be able to see me and I won't be able to see
Yeah, if you come over here, you can at least see this screen. It's one of those things that.
Sorry, I guess you're probably yes, good. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I won't be able to follow you because I won't see you guys.
All right.
That's fine. They don't work and don't interfere, and it doesn't roll. It's just it's slowly. Okay, let me run through each one.
Find them down to Steve. Like that. Oh, go to work. Yeah. Only on one side. Day at work. That's all I can say.
Will the audience please rise? You may be seated. We welcome you, all friends, family, neighbors of Sister JoAnn Bradford Stevenson. Welcome you here today to attend this service with us. I'm Bishop Kevin Anderson, Bishop of the Benjamin First Ward here, that she's come home so we can pay our respects to her. So I'm thrilled to be able to conduct this service here today. Our prelude and postlude music and other music will be played by Sister Julie Hales, and our chorister is Annette Anderson. The family fair previous to this was offered by Wayne Stevenson, JoAnn's son. We'll begin by singing number 293, Each Life That Touches Ours for Good. Following that, the invocation will be given by Marianne Stevenson.
Our dear Father in heaven, we are so thankful for this beautiful day that we have to come and pay our respects and honor the great lady. May we all remember in our hearts the goodness she touched each of our lives with. Father, we ask that you please bless those that are speaking today and performing, that they may have thy spirit to be with them, that it may be pleasing unto thee and to them. We thank thee again, Father, for all our many blessings. And we say these things humbly in the beloved name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
This service today will proceed as follows. We'll have a musical selection by Haley Clark, her granddaughter. That'll be a piano solo. We'll then hear from daughter Janet Bott. Then we'll have a musical selection. Wendy Van Osdale and Sheila Van Osdale, friends. That'll be accompanied by Linda Bartholomew. And then we'll hear from her daughter JoAnn Clark. We'll go to that point.
Okay, I'm really honored to be able to speak today, and I'd like to share some thoughts with my mom. As many of you know, she was an awesome person and we all loved her. She did so many things in her life that it's hard to mention them all, but I'd like to highlight a few memories from all of you. When I think about Mom, one of the first things that comes to mind is how organized she was. She always said there was a place for everything and everything in its place. And she followed that. She had her drawers, her closets, her cabinets organized. She even had her junk drawer perfectly in order, with little dividers in the junk drawer. In her drawer, you didn't pick up a string and the whole drawer come up. It was all arranged neatly. The clothes in her closet were arranged by size, by color, by season. She even had her shoes in shoe boxes labeled what they were, blue dress shoes, brown dress shoes, and she kept them stacked in boxes. I didn't get that gene, obviously, so I had to have her come over and help me a lot. And she'd come in and just shake her head, but we'd tackle my sewing room was always her challenge. And she loved doing it. She'd call me sometimes and say, "How bad's your sewing room looking?" I said, "It's getting there, Mom." She's "Okay, I'll be over." Sometimes I even let it get messy on purpose. I'm sure that was why, so she did help me. Anyway, but she had a knack for making things fit and organizing everything. She could even make my sewing room look good, and that's a trick. But her skills weren't just limited to cleaning my sewing room. She knew how to pack a suitcase or a trunk of a car, like you can't even imagine. When we went on trips, she was the only one that could pack the trunk. One time, JoAnn and I, we can get this in there. We had it all full and there was still a mound. She said, "Mom, come on, you have to come do this." One time Dad went on a trip and she had packed for him. He got there, he was there for a week. When he got ready to come home, he couldn't get it back in the suitcase. He had to go buy another suitcase to bring it all home, which is pretty funny. But one of my favorite parts of her organization was her notes. She labeled everything. If you picked up any knickknack in her house, there's a note underneath. Who gave it to her, where it came from, any history about it. Because she said, as we were going through her house and cleaning it out and stuff, it was very helpful, because to me it's just a little weird bowl. But when you read the history that it was her great grandma's and it came across the plains, you go, "Hey, now that's cool," right? So she said if there was no information, then it's just stuff. But if you know what it is, then it's a treasure. And this kind of sounds a little OCD, but she really wasn't at all. She just liked things organized. And she wanted us to know the value of things and what they were. I think she was afraid that we'd clean house and check stuff, and she didn't want that. So even though she was very organized, her house was still very lived in, very comfortable. It wasn't like it didn't ever sit things down or anything. She knew where everything was too in her house. If you'd call her up and say, "Mom, I gotta get a talk, I need a picture of something," she'd say, "Well, let me go to the file." Who has a file? The third shelf down in that room, and halfway through the file, there's a file labeled whatever subject you had, she had it in there. And she could go right to it. And with being organized, Mom also liked to clean. Didn't get that gene either. And she liked to help others clean. So whenever she'd come for a visit, she didn't just come and sit down and visit with you. She'd grab my sock basket and made socks and fold the laundry, which they're always plenty to fold, or wash the windows, or always a sink full of dishes. My kids would come home from school and they'd walk in the kitchen, "Oh, Randall's been here." And I said, "How can you tell?" Because she always washed the window above my sink. And so it's looking pretty bad because she hasn't washed it for a while. But when she'd leave, my house sparkled. It looked awesome. And I'd feel guilty. I said, "Mom, sit down, let's just visit." She's, "Well, we don't have time to sit. We can talk while we're making socks." I don't know how she did it. She was a bundle of energy and she worked circles around me. She was kind of like the Energizer Bunny. I kept waiting for her to run down, but she just never did. And then once she was done with her day's work, she would relax by making socks or cutting quilt blocks or reading a book or something. In her later years, she read a lot. And she had a lot of books. And speaking of being full of energy, whenever we'd start projects, Mom was always right there to help us. And I always loved it when she'd come help me paint in my house, paint a room, because she loved painting tedious stuff. The woodwork and the door frames and all that crappy crap, that was her favorite. And I hate that, so I'd roll the walls and she'd sit over there and she never taped anything, she'd strike that line with her brush and it was perfect. Mary Ann said the same thing. She'd always come help her paint wallpaper, and Mom was great, taught us all how to wallpaper, you had to do it right. If anything worth doing is worth doing right, or you don't do it at all. But it didn't seem like work when we were doing it with Mom. Whether we were cleaning, canning, quilting, painting, anything else, she made the job very enjoyable. And her entire life, she enjoyed sewing. When she had kids, she made all Alan Ritten's shirts and pajamas all the time, everything they were. And when I came along, finally, she got to make dresses. She said it was a lot more fun than making shirts. And so I had tons and tons of clothes, and she sewed everything. She made most of my clothes pretty much up from high school. And when Barbies first came out, she bought some patterns and a doll, and she made Barbie clothes. And she gave them to a lot of my nieces or my cousins and stuff when they were little. And when JoAnn and I got older, she made Barbie clothes for us. My Barbies were the best dressed dolls in town. And she didn't just make a few things, she made ensembles, out on the display table. It's a box and everything had to match. And that's a box of my Barbie clothes from when I was like 8 years old, and that's the way she'd give it to you. She also expected me to put back that way. You couldn't just jumble them up. And her sewing was very neat. Her insides of clothes looked just about as good as the outside. She was just very careful and neat with everything she did. She also sold clothes for our dolls. There again, best dressed dolls in town. And I had a variety, some of the doll clothes out on the table. Those are mine from when the one dress I was 3 years old. And that was my favorite dress on that doll. And they also always had the bedding for their beds and the blankets and the buntings and the coats and the hats and everything that would all go together. You could just have clothes. And she also sold a lot of quilt tops. Now, not the fancy quilt tops, but the good old Grandma Blanche quilt tops, your scraps, your pieces, you put them together because it keeps you warm. Moms did look better than Grandmas sometimes, at least they matched. She tried harder, right? Excuse me. And then later we tied. And this is something we all learned from Grandma Blanche, tying our quilts. I honestly, I think I was almost married before I realized you could buy a blanket. I just thought if you had something on your bed, you made a quilt, right? Somebody gave me one, Charlotte. I didn't buy it. I didn't. We got this given. What is this? It's a white quilt. It's crazy. Anyway, we tied a lot of quilts over the years with Mom. One Christmas was kind of fun. We made a life story quilt for Mom to surprise her dad. And that same year, she made some quilts for Glenn and Brent and Craig to surprise them. And she was so excited because she'd tell them, no, they're going to be so excited. They're going to be so surprised. And I was thinking, yeah, so are you. And so Christmas was awesome. It was surprise. Everybody was way surprised with their quilts. And probably the first time I've seen Dad and Mom tear up and cry together because which they should have. A lot of work on our quilt. We cried too along the way. Anyway, she was always making quilts for her kids and her grandkids for their beds, for our trailers, and lots of Levi quilts, tons of Levi quilts, and Afghans to watch TV with, and many, many more. And we really appreciated all these quilts and Afghans on cold nights. We all had our own, and just keep warm that way. Mom enjoyed traveling, so as she got older, we would invite her to go with us on trips. And she had a lot of fun going with us. We went to Disneyland several times, on an Alaskan cruise, on a New England cruise. We went to Nauvoo, we went to Branson, and we went up to the New York, saw the church sites up through there. And she loved that. She loved to go, but she wouldn't do it on her own. So she said, I'll just hang on to your shirt tail, And so, okay, let's go. One of my favorite trips that I went on with her was a girls' trip. And we took a trip to go visit all the places that Laura Ingalls Wilder had lived. Because that was my favorite books growing up. And Mom says, great. So it took us through 9 different states, and it was a really, really fun trip. Mom's packing skills came in really handy on that trip because we rented a car and got there. It was just a little Chevy Malibu with 5 of us and all of our luggage for a week and a half. And so Mom had to pack the trunk. And we had taken snacks along the way, so when we were in the souvenir shop, she says, if you buy that puzzle, you're going to have to eat more snacks, so we can't get the puzzle back. But she made things fit. Another trip we went on was down the Oregon coast, and we discovered just how freaked out Mom was over water. We hiked through a gorge, and we had to walk through a river that was about as deep as our thighs in some places. With each step, Mom would go, oh, as she's hanging onto our shirt tails, with a death grip on the back of our shirts. We made it just fine. And once we reached the ocean, she would only go in as far as the tops of her feet. If the water covered her feet, she'd say, "It's pulling me in, it's pulling me in." And she, it was pretty funny, we laughed at her. It was the same when she was in a swimming pool. It could be like, thigh, and she's hanging out of the side, oh. So one trip we were on Randall, my son Randall, he would just swish in the water. I gotta get out, I gotta get out. Anyway, it was pretty funny. She didn't laugh as hard as we did, but it was funny. But she hated water her entire life, so she was a really good sport to go with us to the beach, to the pools, or through the gorge. Every trip we would go on, Mom would keep track of it. She was a great record keeper. So she'd take a notebook, and it's okay, she'd date who's going on the trip in the first place, and every stop we'd make, everywhere we'd go was listed in the book. Lots of details. And then she'd have separate pages for our expenses, because I would just spend money, and she'd say, "You need to keep track of what you're spending." So I'd have a page with my name, she'd write down what I spent, what we all, because we'd split costs on some of the trips. And so everything, and then we'd get home. Once we got home, Mom would do a scrapbook of it. Within a week or two, that book was on the travel shelf, which is great, because whenever I went back to do mine, I'd go get Mom's book to copy, because I couldn't remember what I'd done. We kind of poked fun at her for this, but we're so grateful now to have all the information that she kept track of. And Mom loved her family, and each of us knew we were very, very important to her. She was also really patient with us, as she taught us to do things that she could have probably done a lot faster by herself if we'd get out of her way. But she always made time for all of us. She wasn't one to say her feelings out loud too much, but we knew she loved us. She showed us by her actions rather than always her words. She went to ball games, dance recitals, piano recitals, any other activity we were involved in. And when we grew up, she started going to the grandkids' activities, and she'd call me up and say, "Give me a schedule of the kids' ball games, and I'll fit it in." And I don't think she missed very many of them. And that was her way to support the grandkids and show her love for them. And she always felt bad she wasn't able to spend as much time with Alan's kids and Wayne's kids, because they moved away. And she felt really bad, so she wished they could be closer, so that she could have got to know their kids closer too. And she was pretty even-tempered, very calm. I think that came from her mother not being calm, so Mom had to be kind of, keep things calm at their house. Took a lot to get her riled up. But she did have a feisty side. We did see that riled up a few times. Alan probably more than some of the rest of us. But she didn't put up with too much guff or any disrespect, and she wouldn't hesitate to get after you. She rarely raised her voice, but she was pretty good at guilt tripping you. Sometimes that's even worse. Like, "Yeah, Mom, don't make me feel so guilty." When we lived in Benjamin, she started going to plays at BYU with her mom and her aunts. They had season tickets for a few years, and she really enjoyed them. This started her love of theater. She never missed, after that, a local production of community theater, high school productions. That's dedicated. Hale Theater, Desert Star Theater, and the Broadway shows that come through Salt Lake. We've had season tickets for there for over 26 years now. And one of the first Broadway shows she saw was Phantom of the Opera. Dad surprised her and Jolene, not me, and sent them to LA to go see this trip, the show. I also enjoy plays, and I'm so glad we can all do this together. She liked most musicals, except for when the music was too modern. She did not like modern slinking around on the stage dancing. She totally hated Cats because of the dancing. It's this dark alley with these slinky things around. And she hated Hamilton because she hated rap music. It's like, seriously, Mother? She said Hamilton was in her bottom 3 plays she's ever seen. Went to my top 5, Mom. Anyway, I'm really glad that we got to do that with her and have that experience. So when I was talking to the family, asking for some memories, some of the things they remembered were Mom's gift of gab. If you went to the store, it's like, "Oh, Mom, I need to hear about your life," but she made everybody feel very welcome, so easy and comfortable to talk to, and she did. And sometimes it would take a long time to get checked out, and out of there, but it was good. She made people feel important. And another thing that we always made us laugh was Mom's bad sense of direction. Every time we'd be driving, she'd say, I don't know how and where you know where you're going. I could never get us there. And it's like, well, we're like 4 blocks from home. Many times as we'd come out of the store somewhere, she'd like head in the rock and, Mom, we're parked over here. Oh, are we? Okay. You know, so she's all just hanging on to you. You just get you where you need to be. And then she was also terrified of heights. If she was up very high, she had to hang on because she said it was pulling her over. She heard equilibrium was not being great. Anyway, even at a home show once when they had the open railing on both sides of this, upper level, she said, I'm gonna have to crawl over there. I can't walk. I said, well, hang on, what's pulling me? So she closed her eyes and hung onto the back of my shirt so we could walk across this trail on both sides. So we did laugh out loud for that. It was real, but it was funny. And many of you know that Mom also collected salt and pepper shakers. She got her first set when she was 10 years old. She got the little box top thing off the back of a cereal box, I think it was, or something like that, and sent in her 10 cents, and got her first set of little planter peanut salt and pepper shakers. And then a neighbor or somebody, I can't remember who, she said she was gonna collect them, and she said, well, I'll give you your first set to start. So she gave her a cute little set. And as of her last count, she had 174 sets of salt and pepper shakers. Different kinds from everywhere, different styles, and they're really fun. All the kids always would go to her house, and she could tell you every story about each one. She also had a book of the salt and pepper shaker cabinet listed on shelf 1. She had a cross-reference who gave them to her, where they came from, what states they were from. So, I didn't get that cheap. Anyway, but it was really fun to look at and have Mom tell us about them. And Mom came across as more serious, but she was actually pretty funny. She had a funny sense of humor. She said, we laughed. I don't know if she thought she was as funny as we did. But she was willing to act silly. I remember reunions when her and Grandma would do their Maggie and Sarah little skit thing. It was like, oh, Mom, you're being so silly. Anyway, but she was willing to do whatever it took. Excuse me. And she was fun to tease, and she was a good sport about it. But watch out, she could tease right back. And she was really fun with the kids. She was awesome. The kids all loved her. She had countless sleepovers with the grandkids, making thick, soft beds on the floor and reading stories with all of them. And she also made the holiday special for all the kids. They all remember the Easter egg hunts that she had for the grandkids every year. We never got them when I was a kid. I think she liked the grandkids better than us. And at Christmas time, we all look forward to playing bingo with all the family after a delicious Christmas dinner. She always had a lot of fun prizes. Mom also gave the best ear and nose kisses. And the grandkids and great-grandkids would run, stand in line and get their kisses. She was one of the best moms and grandma in the world. We're sure going to miss you, Mom. And say the same in Jesus Christ's name. Come home, the Father calls. Come home, my child, to me. Come home, the Holy Ghost will lead you to eternity. Lest we forget our hopes with God, this lovely earth, its seas, its sky, and all things beautiful and true of Heavenly Father,
come, Savior comes, come home, along the straight and narrow way. Lest we forget our hopes with God, His lovely earth, His seas, its skies, and all things beautiful and true of Heavenly Father
Make me talk after the music. Music gets to me every time. Thank you. I'm happy to share some memories of my mom today. As you all know, she was a great lady, and she made some really awesome memories with all of us. If you know Mom at all, and like Jenna mentioned, she liked to write everything down. It was very detailed, and most of the time it would end up in a scrapbook. So if we ever bought her cards or wrote her letters, we had to put a lot of thought into it because we knew that they would be saved in a scrapbook. She started keeping scrapbooks back when she was 17 years old as part of a Young Woman project, and she never stopped. Not only did she make books about her own life, but also Dad's life for each of her 6 kids, at least it's up until we got married, and then we were on our own. I think some of us stopped at that point. She also put together scrapbooks about her church callings, vacations that she'd go on, dolls she collected, salt and pepper shakers, friends she had, ward members. If anything showed up in the newspaper that caught her interest, she would put it in a scrapbook. All in all, I think we counted over 60 that she has. And we're not talking just little scrapbooks. I mean, they're good sized. Earlier, Janet talked about how organized Mom was. Well, this applied to her scrapbooking also. She was always on the hunt for little stickers and pictures. If we had cute wrapping paper that had little pictures on it, she's, oh, don't tear that. She'd save it, and she'd cut out little pictures for scrapbooks. And she had them all organized in envelopes, all labeled. And she had anything from alligators on down to zippers. If you needed some random, I used to raise chickens one time, and she's like, oh, do you need chickens for your scrapbooks? She would, pull out, do you want a white one, a brown one? And which way do you want it to face? How big do you need it? It's like, okay, mother, why do you have an envelope with chicken pictures? She did, and they were all organized. I love to do scrapbooks where they're I'd haul all my stuff down, and it was great because I would just hurry glue the pictures and write up the little story behind them, and then she would do all the decorating with the pictures. That was too tedious for me. I couldn't do it, but she loved it. She would sit and just study the page and read the story and decorate little pictures as to what the story was about. So when I look back to my scrapbooks, they look pretty good, thanks to her. Now when I take them over, it's just quickly slapped in, but at least I try. Because Mom kept such detailed scrapbooks about her life, I love it. I mean, we've learned a lot about her younger years and her growing up and all the stories that she shared and pictures, and we got to read about all the time she spent with her cousins Charlene and Renee at her Grandma Bradford's and Grandma Roach's house, and all the good memories that she had growing up, and playing with them on her grandma's farm. She loved to tell stories about the younger years. One that I remember is her and her cousin Charlene. They were at her Grandma Roach's house, and those older houses had those steep basement stairs, covered in linoleum. Where? Oh, upstairs, okay. Anyway, they thought it would be fun to get in a clothes basket and sled down those stairs. And so they decided that Mom would try it and go first, so she did. And I think she slid about 2 stairs, and she tumbled the rest of the way down. And Shirley decided she didn't want to take her turn. And Mom liked to tell that story. She and Shirley were like sisters growing up, and till the day that Shirley passed away, she and Mom were really close. Mom always loved dolls. Growing up, she had paper dolls and baby dolls, and she played for hours with them. She continued to love dolls and collect them her entire life. She bought a lot of dolls, and she also made a lot of dolls too. She sewed around 150 sets of Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls, which I have some, and Janet didn't. She loves to remind me of that fact, but those on the table are mine. She gave a lot of these as gifts, and she also sold a lot of Raggedy Ann and Andy dolls. Later, she made porcelain dolls, and she dressed all of them. Between all the dolls she bought and the ones that she made, by the time she moved over to Santa Quinn, she dedicated an entire room to her dolls. It was the doll room. And her granddaughters loved to go in there and look at the dolls. They were allowed to touch a few and play with a few of them, but they would pick out their favorites. I think Mom instilled a love of dolls in her daughters and granddaughters. Mom never watched TV. In fact, I think I'd see her watch Price is Right, and I think that was about it. Other than that, she never turned the TV on. Even when she'd be there alone, she didn't need that noise, and she said there's nothing good to watch, so what's the point in turning it on? But she loved to play board games. So when we'd be at her house, the TV wouldn't be on, and she'd say, go get a game, let's play a game. And she was good. She was hard to beat. Some of her favorites she would play with is Scrabble, Count Your Blessings, Rummy Cube, Phase 10, and Yahtzee. And like I say, she was good at all these, but I think Yahtzee was her specialty. She would talk to those dice and tell them what she wanted, and she would shake them, and they would listen to her, and she would get those Yahtzees. She also enjoyed doing puzzles. When we'd go to her house, she'd have a puzzle on more often than not. I'd love to sit there and put the puzzle together and visit with her. And sometimes it would be 2, 3 in the morning. We would still be visiting and putting that puzzle together. and because you can't leave it unfinished, right? She was so nice. She'd always wait. I know it was the very last piece. She'd always let me put it in. She'd just, oh, there it is. Okay, put it in. And yeah, I guess I'm not that nice. Mom was a really good cook. She cooked a lot of good hot meals every night, and she made everything from scratch. I don't ever really remember opening a box to make anything. She also, when we were growing up, she bottled everything. She bottled every kind of vegetable, fruit, pickles, sweet pickles, spaghetti sauce, tomatoes, you name it, she bottled it. Our shelves are always filled with good home canned food. One year when we lived in St. George, she canned over 1,000 bottles of fruits and vegetables that year. When I was older and doing canning my own, I'd call her and like, oh, this is hard work. Why did you teach us to do this? She would say, well, I bottled over 1,000 bottles at one year. It's like, I know. So my 35, quarts that I was doing didn't seem so bad anymore, I guess. Mom was always really happy that we followed in her steps and we do our own canning. She never would call her, on advice or how to do it. She said, oh, I'm so happy you guys do that. So one of our favorite things that she made was homemade pear jam. Good old pear jam, especially if it's on some homemade bread or some scones. You don't get any better than that. There was always good food at Mom's house, whether it was homemade bread, cookies, popsicles, snacks, or leftovers from dinner. You never went hungry while you were there, and you never went empty-handed when you would leave. You'd be eating dinner, and as she was putting it on your plate, she's like, did you want more of this? I was like, well, I guess I do. Or else if there's a little bit left, I can't put this little bit in the fridge. Here, you eat it. It's like, oh, I'm so full. But yeah, you never went hungry. And every time we'd get ready to leave, she'd, well, let me go see. And she'd look in her fridge and her pantry and always send you home with something. And then there's the candy drawer. I'm sure pretty much all of you here today at some point has got in Mom's candy drawer. She loved to fill that full of our favorite treats and goodies, and it was just habit. You go see Mom and you just head straight to the candy drawer first. Even after she moved over to Legacy House, and we would go to her house in Santa Quinn. I mean, we knew that there wasn't going to be anything in it, but just out of habit, you'd go there and you'd open that drawer. Yeah, it's all good. During her life, Mom lived in many different houses. She moved a lot with her parents when she was younger, and then she moved a lot when she married my dad. At one point, when she was 27 years old, she had lived in 27 different houses. And she thought that was unique, and she liked to say that. I think that's why she was such an organized, clean person, is moving so much. You'd have to be. The house in Benjamin was her 31st house, and where she lived the longest. We should appreciate coming back to Benjamin for her funeral, because Mom did consider this home. She was a homebody, and she liked to spend most of her day at home. Sometimes several days would go by, and she hadn't left the house. She was just content to stay there and cook and sew and tie quilts, do scrapbooks, and other things that she enjoyed. We could never really understand this, because I think we got more of our dad in us. We just liked to go. And yeah, I couldn't understand how she could just stay at home all the time. When I was in grade school, Mom started working at the World Drug Store in Spanish Fork, and she worked there 2 days a week for 15 years, and it was a perfect job for her, and she loved it. It got her out of the house, and it also gave her a little bit extra spending money. After the World Drug Store closed, she worked a few days a week at Beehive Clothing down what was on Main Street in Spanish Fork. And she made some really good friends there, and she also really liked that job. She only quit that job after Dad had his four-wheeler accident, and she felt like she needed to be home with him. As Janet mentioned already, Mom was very energetic, and she just never stopped. She'd come up and stay with me in Brigham City a lot, and she'd usually spend a week there, because I'd come and get her on the weekend. She'd stay the week, and I'd take her home the following weekend. And by the time she would go home, I was exhausted. She would just run circles around me that whole week, but my house was dazzling. She loved to clean, like Janet said, and I did not get that gene either. She got my kids involved, and we all worked together, and it was fun. Her favorite saying was, "Lots of hands make light work." And I agree, it does. I remember one night, it was close to 10 p.m. and I was done. I'm like, "Mom, let's go to bed." And she's like, "Oh, let's go clean your fridge out first." So she heads in there and starts pulling stuff out of my fridge. I'm like, "Really? It's bedtime." But anyway, we got that done. And then we went to bed. I don't know if she got all of her energy. She was also pretty strong too. She was a little small lady, but she was strong. When she was 70 years old, my boy was 5 years old at the time, and he was kind of being a little, smart mouth. And as he ran past her, she grabbed him by the waistband with one hand, and she picked him up, 5 years old. And she went and put him in his room and said, "You can stay there, so you can act nicer." And I don't think I could have even picked him up one-handed, but she did at 70. And so anyway, yeah, she was pretty strong, pretty healthy. I think part of the reason, she drank a lot of aloe vera juice, she took a lot of vitamins, she really took care of herself. And she was proud of that fact. Up until her stroke at 85, she didn't take any regular prescription medications at all. She'd go to the doctor and, they'd list your prescriptions, and she's like, nothing, and they were always surprised. Other things that made Mom unique is she changed clothes at least 3 times a day, all the time. She'd come home and she'd change. Then if we're gonna go to town, she'd go change into her town clothes. Then we'd come home and she'd change back into her home clothes. And then if we were gonna go, somewhere a little nicer, she had her nice clothes, and she had her nicer town clothes and her church clothes. So and she changed clothes a lot. And to me, that's normal. I still come home and I put on my at-home clothes, and then you change into your town clothes to go to town. And she would say, then you have your nice clothes and your grumpy clothes, Anyway, so that might have made us chuckle about her. She was very thorough when she cleaned. Jen always mentioned that, but when she would come up to help me clean, she would wipe off the tops of my door frames. I would start cleaning the room and she's dusting the door frames, like, oh, okay. I don't ever get to that part, but I had really clean door frames and light switch plates. That was her thing too, just wash those all the time. She was very generous and she loved to give. And she put a lot of thought into her gifts. She would listen to us and pay attention to what we said, and she loved to surprise us with things. If she wasn't able to buy us what she wanted to, like clothes or something, she didn't know our size or what we liked, she would get in the catalogs or magazines and she would cut out a picture of Levi's. And so she'd give you the money, but she would put a picture of the Levi's, meaning you need to go get your own Levi's, but this is what you gotta go buy with it. So, you get a little picture of Levi's or a shirt or whatever it was. So anyway, I thought that was funny that she would do that. Mom always had cold feet. Even in the middle of July, she would have on usually nylons that just go to your knee-high socks, plus socks and house slippers. It was just her thing. She wore all the time, and then she would take off her house slippers and put on her shoes to go, come home, put her house slippers back on. And I don't like shoes at all. I would wear flip-flops all the time if I could, and she would just always look at me, "Oh, aren't your feet cold?" Like, "Mom, it's 100 degrees outside." No. She could never understand how we could have bare feet. I think when she took her socks off, she was getting in bed, basically, but they were on all the other times. Everything that Mom did, she did well. She went above and beyond in everything that She did, and always gave it her all. She never did anything halfway. I think back to the different church jobs that she had, and yeah, she never went halfway with those. She taught primary a lot, and through those years I was in primary, and we were kind of the difficult class, I guess. I think there was 8 boys in that class and 3 girls, and we just cycled through teachers, and finally they called Mom to be our teacher, and being her, she put a lot of time into preparing those lessons, like every day of the week before, and she would prepare, games and handouts, and we had an attendance chart, we had activities. I mean, she completely turned that class around, and those boys loved her. And when I run into them now, sorry, they just remind me how special my mom was, and how much they loved her, and what an impact that she had on their lives. And she did. Every church job that she had, she put her all into it. When I would come home from school, she was always in her sewing room, preparing a lesson and making handouts and thinking of, fun ways to teach the kids. She taught, she was a stake and service leader for years too, and same thing. She just was always, working on those things. I don't know how she fit all she did into a day. Maybe she didn't watch TV. Maybe that's the secret. The gospel was always really important to Mom. Her whole life, she tried to live the best that she could and be a good example to her kids. She had a current temple recommended up until the day she died, and it was very important to her that she had that. She had a strong testimony, and she was a good example to those around her. She'll be remembered as a faithful daughter of God, and I know that she and my dad had a sweet reunion last week. It's hard to say goodbye to her, but we're really happy for her to have completed her mission in this life and to be reunited with all her family and loved ones. She was an awesome mom and an awesome grandma, and she was a big part of all of our lives, and we're really going to miss her. I love you, Mom. I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
What a wonderful service so far this has been, and I'm thankful for the opportunities I mentioned to do this. One of the greatest blessings in my family's life is when we lived in another part of Benjamin, and decided it was time to move, and we ended up getting together it was about the time Dale died. We'd started talking before Dale passed away, and then we finished up with JoAnn, and we live in the house that Dale built now, and that's been a great blessing in my life where that home is, and to be able to be a part of that. As both Janet and Jolene mentioned, I can testify to JoAnn's cleanliness and her organization. When we got in the home, there was a file for everything that had ever been done. Now, I think there was a file for when they changed the light bulbs. She was very organized. Now I contrast that with Dale's garage that we had to get cleaned out before we moved in there. And so I don't know how that big of a difference worked out, but it seemed to. So but there's a lot of difference there. But I'm thankful for the opportunity we had to move into their home and be part of that and get to know JoAnn. I knew him. I grew up in this part of Benjamin, so I knew him when they moved in here. And I was Wayne's. He reminded me today I was Wayne's young men's advisor before I moved into the other part of town. So the Stevenson family is special to me, and just what a blessing it was to be a part of what they started here in Benjamin. And when Jolene called me, wondering if they could have the funeral here, I thought, this is home to JoAnn. And so we're glad to host that and be able to do that. Alma said, "For behold, this life is a time for men to prepare to meet God." And then he went on to say, "And now, my beloved brethren, I would exhort you to have patience, and that ye bear with all manner of afflictions. But that ye have patience and bear with those afflictions with a firm hope, that ye shall one day rest from all your afflictions." And I know that JoAnn is resting from her afflictions now. That the past few years have been hard for her. I don't know many people that have lost as many children as she has, and to go through that's a hard thing. And so, what a reunion, a special reunion she's having with her beloved Dale and the children that she had that were there waiting for her. And I know that. I know she lives. I know that she's in a happy place and greeting parents, cousins, all kinds of siblings. It's a wonderful reunion for her. So I'm thankful for that. I, like each of you know, I have a testimony in the gospel. It's times like these that when we need to rely on the gospel and know that life goes on. We have a Savior that provided the resurrection and a way for us to return to Him. And I think JoAnn's one of her, as I know her, one of her goals for her family would be to follow the gospel. Keep the strength in your lives that will return you to our Father in heaven, that each of you can meet up with her and see her again, and I know you will. And I say those things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. The pallbearers are Wayne Stevenson, Josh Stevenson, Stephen Lott, Jared Clark, Alex Clark, and Randall Lott. The honorary pallbearers are Sean Stevenson, Jake Stevenson, Sam Stevenson, and Kyle Stevenson. We'll conclude this service with a hymn, number 152, "God Be With You Till We Meet Again." After that, Brother Randall Bradford, her brother, will give the benediction.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for all the tributes that were said about our sister JoAnn and how good of a person she was, how good of a life she had. We ask that we'll be able to continue to the cemetery and do it in safety, and that we'll be able to celebrate our sister JoAnn's life. We love her. She was a fantastic sister. And we say this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ.
Okay, if the pallbearers can come forward now this time. If the audience will please rise.